Hey everyone, today we're talking the new Greyhaven album, Keep It Quiet. This album came out a couple weeks ago, but I still wanted to get a review in for it because it's definitely been one of my favorite albums of the year so far. Starting off with track 1, Prelude, Evening Star. I think this song works really well as an album opener. Even though it's on the shorter side, I think it still holds its own as its own complete song. And the way that it fades into track 2, I think just does a really nice job of setting the scene for the rest of the album. The style starts off as something different than what they've done before. It's really bass heavy, and the song feels like a long build to this eventual heavy moment that we get. I think there's a really unique guitar solo that happens. It sounds really, really unique, the effects that they're using on the guitar. I think it stands out and adds just another layer of craziness on top of their usual amount of crazy that they bring to each of their songs. The build-up works really well until we get that eventual heavy arrival, and I think the heavy arrival works really well just as a normal Greyhaven riff. It's a really heavy section, and I like that each time it repeats, there's a layer that almost drops out every time, so it works as almost an inverse build-up. We get the build-up, 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 we finally get this heavy moment, and then each time it repeats, it just gets a little heavier. They take some layer away, the drums get a little bit less busy until we get into the speed up that just goes right into track 2. So I think the song, again, works really well as a start to the album, and it really sets the mood for everything that's to come. Moving on next to track number 2, Shatter and Burst. And again, I would really group this track together with track number 1 since they both flow into each other and they both really work as the album opener when they're played back to back. I think this song works really well. I think the riffs are very strong. They have that signature Greyhaven sound, and I think really the vocals demonstrate a nice step up in quality from the previous albums. I think there's a really strong chorus in this song, and overall the quality of the screams, the layering, all of those things, I feel like are a noticeable step up from their previous albums. I think the song wraps up nicely and puts a nice cap on the first 2 songs if you look at them as a whole piece, going into this sample, which they usually don't do in a lot of their songs. So they've sampled something and then it goes into this more relaxed section to kind of cool things down after what works really well as a 2-song opening to this album. Next up we have track number 3, Show Me Where You Are. I like that this one just starts off with the chorus. I think that's a cool song structure choice that they made, and I think it was the right one because the chorus is really strong, and again, I think the vocals are really prominent in this song and highlight that they've really taken a step up in the vocal writing, vocal performance. All of those areas I think are a noticeable increase, and this song really highlights that. There's some transitions in the choruses from more of like a chest voice to more of a falsetto, and I think that falsetto voice gives it a nice dreamy quality to the chorus, which I think is one of their stronger choruses. On the riff side of things, the lower gain guitars that happen during the verses, I think they're really fun. I think they add a lot of energy to the song. There's also a breakdown halfway through that I think works really well, although this does get into one of my overall nitpicks of the album, and I'll talk about this in a few other songs and at the end with my overall thoughts. But this is one of those breakdowns where, while the vocals I think are really strong across this album, I think that this breakdown is really cool, and they do this section for a while, they stay on it. I think it would have been nice to hear it once without vocals and then add the vocals in on the second repeat, because it just feels a little too busy. Their guitar work is usually on the busy side. They have a lot going on, and I think there's a lot to unpack just on the instrumental side of things. And then on top of that, when you add in these really busy vocals that are doing a lot, doing these interesting melodies, I think all of these parts work separately, but it would be nice every once in a while, there's a few other songs that I'll mention this in, if they would have just taken the vocals out for one time through the breakdown, just to let us sit with that heaviness and digest what's going on instrumentally, and then add in the vocals to create more of a sense of build, or that we're adding something to the song, or that the song's moving, all of those things. I think that is a choice that they could have made that would have made me appreciate the song even more. Other than that, I think this is a very strong song, and it keeps the intensity up after a really strong opening 2 tracks. Next up, we have track number 4, Burn a Miracle. This is a song that I've had on repeat since it released as a single. It got me very excited for this album, and I think what I love about this one is it takes all of the things that I already love about Greyhaven, and they just execute everything at a very high level, making it what I would argue is one of their best songs of all time. So they start out with this awesome heavy riff. There's a cool build-up and the vocal call-out before things kind of drop. I think all of that is a lot of fun, and I think, again, the vocals really shine here. There's more of that Greyhaven sound that they've done in their previous albums. For lack of a better term, I like to call it kind of the yee-haw style. The screams feel really out of control in a good way. If you look at songs of theirs like Blemish, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about, where they're just, I feel like he's kind of sliding or something. I don't know what the right term is, but it's a really unique effect on the vocals that I don't hear a lot of vocalists do, and I feel like it adds another element of craziness to what's already going on, and I really enjoy it. After that, they get into a verse that is really drum and bass focused. There's a few moments on this album where they really let the drum and bass just kind of carry the energy, and they've done that in previous songs. I think it works really well in previous songs that they've done, and I think it works really well in this song as well. When we get to the chorus, I feel like this is easily one of their best chorus. The chord progression is awesome. The lyrics and vocals are very catchy and memorable, and I think to me this stands out as one of their best choruses of all of their songs. After the chorus, I like, from a song structure standpoint, that they change things up in the second verse a little bit. They change up the groove, they add a little bit here and there to extend that verse and help it build into the next chorus, make it feel a little different from the material that they presented already. And I like that. It keeps the song feeling fresh throughout the entire listen. We also get a breakdown in this song. I think it works really well, and I think it's a better example than the previous song of giving the instrumentals some space to breathe. The vocals kind of cut in and out, and when they're out, that is when the guitar gets really busy and things poke through a little bit more, when they really want you to have that riff or that melodic material on the instrumental side to digest. They kind of let that happen, and I think this is a really great example of letting the instrumentals shine while still having vocals over the breakdown. I think they hit that balance really well. Like I already said, this is definitely one of my favorite songs of theirs of all time. I've got no complaints about this one, and I think it's a really strong continuation of the first three songs. This album is off to a really good start. Next up, we have track 5, Where the Light Leaves Us. This song is a definite mood change from the previous 4. The energy definitely dips a little bit, but I think it's still a really good song. I think the chorus hits really hard, and there's some really fun moments throughout. I would describe this song as less aggressive than the previous 4, but there's still an element of chaos and craziness that I think fits their signature sound and works really well in the style that they're going for. There's some really great guitar work in the choruses, and I like that coming out of the choruses we do get these heavier moments to contrast the softer start at the beginning. The bass playing on this song I think really shines as well. A moment that really stuck out to me was in the second verse. There's all this arpeggiated stuff going on in the bass part that, again, I think really adds a lot of energy to the song, and it keeps things energetic even if the overall style is less aggressive than the previous songs. The end of the song does ramp up again. It gets more chaotic and heavy, but I do think, again, that this is one where the instrumental and the vocal are just too busy all at once, and there's just a little too much going on. I wish they would have separated that out a little bit more so that I could fully hear and digest and appreciate everything that's going on from an instrumental standpoint and from a vocal standpoint, instead of trying to process all of it at once. Moving on to track number 6, Night in October. This one starts off with more of a spooky vibe that I really liked, and again, they're really focusing on that groove in the verses to kind of carry the energy in what is otherwise a more relaxed song compared to the previous ones. I do feel like the chorus on this song is a little bit weaker, and overall I think this song stands out to me as a little less engaging than the previous songs. I think there are some interesting things going on in this one from a chord progression standpoint, and I like that they transition between these different sections, between the more spooky thing, and there's some more almost happy sounding moments that happen. I think they do all of these transitions really well, but for whatever reason, this song just didn't stick out to me as much as the previous 5, and I would say it's probably one of my least listened to on this album. Next up, we have Technicolor Blues, track number 7. I think this one is easily the most experimental song that Greyhaven has done, and there's a lot that I appreciate about this song. The prominence of the acoustic guitars really reminds me a lot of bands like Avenged Sevenfold on songs like Gunslinger, where they really sit in this acoustic sound for a little while, but they still do bring that rock sound towards the middle and end of the song, and I think Greyhaven does this really well. I really like that they sit in this sound for a good half of the song. They really let the acoustics do their thing, and they really let the vibe settle as this much less energetic song. It's got a really unique sound for them, and I like that they just sit in this, and they don't do it for 30 seconds and then go back to normal Greyhaven stuff. They actually make this a big part of the song, and I think it works really well. When we do finally get to the chorus, they do bring back more of their signature riff writing. There's a lot going on in the guitars, especially during the chorus, that really sounds like what they're known for doing. But I still think it kind of maintains that rock sound, less of that crazy metal sound, that math rock thing. It's more of a like classic rock, fun. I like the way that things build up until the distortion kicks in and they go back to more of their normal riff style. But I do think that they blend this style with the acoustic side of things really well. The song still feels unique even though they do get into more of their normal riff writing territory. It definitely feels different, but towards the middle of the song, it definitely feels like Greyhaven. So I think this is a really good example of a band experimenting with their sound while still injecting elements that longtime fans will recognize and appreciate and feel comfortable with. It doesn't feel like too big of a departure from what they're known for doing, but there's definitely a uniqueness to it that makes this song stand out. Overall, this one stands out to me for its uniqueness, and on repeat listens, this one has really grown on me. I think it's a really strong song on this album. Next up, track number 8, we've got Satellite and Love. This one definitely goes back to more of the sound and energy from the first few songs on this album, much more aggressive and much more chaotic. The riffs in this one stand out to me as some of my favorites on the album. I think the guitar work is really strong and carries this song. I also think the chorus on this one works really well, and vocally, I think this is one of my favorite choruses on the album. Not too much else to say about this one. Again, I think it works really well. I do think that there's a whole minute or so of ambience at the end, and samples and all that kind of thing. I think that was maybe a bit long. The rest of the song is really high energy, and then there's a whole minute of just this ambient fade out. I think that could have been shortened a little bit just to make the song flow a little bit better. Next up, we have track number 9, From the Backseat of a Moving Car. This one starts out really, really calm before getting into what I would argue is one of the more chaotic moments on the whole album. There's this legato tapping guitar part that really stands out, and I think the drums are getting really busy in this section to keep the energy very high. They keep this pacing up for a while. I think it's really impressive, and the more that I listen to this one, the more that I hear on the instrumental side of things, especially from the drums, and then the guitar work. There's a lot going on that really keeps the intensity high. I think the chorus is pretty decent. It works well enough. And there is a vibe shift where they go back to more of this calm sound, but even when it's calm, this is another moment where I think the bass and the drums are really keeping things moving forward, even though a lot of the other instrumentals have dropped out. Again, though, I gotta get into that same nitpick I've had with some of the previous songs. I think this one has a really cool and really busy breakdown where there's a lot happening on the instrumental side of things. And it's this cool triplet riff that I think works really well. However, the vocals are also doing this really busy triplet melody, and they're harmonizing with each other, and I think I can give them credit for coming up with a really unique melody for this section, and I think the vocal melody sounds brighter and more on the happy side of things, while the guitars are in this more heavy dissonant territory, and I think that contrast is cool. But again, I think this is a section that would have worked really well if they just did the breakdown once on its own and then did it once with the vocals, so that you can really sit and pick apart everything that's happening. Because I think on both sides of things, vocals have a lot to offer there, instrumentals have a lot to offer there. When you put them together, there's just so much going on that it's kind of hard to appreciate everything happening all at once. Next up, we have track number 10, Diamond to Diamond. So this is another one that for whatever reason, when I get to it in the album, it just doesn't stick out to me as much as the previous songs do. Although I think there are definitely things to appreciate about this one. I should mention this is also the longest song on the album by almost a minute over any of the previous songs. The first minute is spent building things up. I think they do this well, and I think when they finally arrive at the chorus, that all of that is effective. They definitely lean more into that more rock sound that they get in Technicolor Blues versus the craziness of some of the previous songs at the start of the album. I do think they pull off this more stripped back rock sound really well, but I think I appreciated it more in a more experimental song like Technicolor Blues than I did in this one. A little over halfway through, they do get into more of their usual sound. There's some legato guitar riffs going on, and there's some pitch shifting, which is all good fun. However, ultimately, I do feel like this song just gets a little bit too long for me, and there's just not quite enough substance there for me to continue listening to this one. It hasn't grown on me on repeat listens. And I would put it near the bottom of my ranking for this album. And next up we have the final track number 11, Cemetery Sun. So I think they really end this album on a high note. I would put this song up there in my personal ranking next to Burn a Miracle. I think it's one of their best songs of all time. And from the very first riff, this song totally has me hooked. The vocal delivery again gets into more of that yeehaw territory that I think is really cool. And the screams I think are really effective. They're very energetic. It's catchy in a way, and I think they really bring the chaos and they execute everything at a very high level. I think the chorus works really well, and I like that it drops into more of a halftime feel to contrast with the really energetic verses. I think that works really well and makes the chorus stand out as pretty unique. Getting towards the end of the song, I like that they also do a fade out where the vocals are doing this really simple melody while the guitars keep things really heavy, and while it's fading out, it sort of distorts and pixelates a little bit to get this really cool wash at the very end to close out the album. I thought that was a really effective choice, and I really like the way that it ties everything up at the very end. Like I said, I would definitely rank this one up there on my favorite Greyhaven songs of all time, and I put it up next to Burn a Miracle as contender for best song on this album. So that does it for the track-by-track review. Getting in now to some of my overall thoughts, I'll start with the positives, talk about a few negatives, and then just give some overall thoughts and recommendations if you like this album. Starting off with the positives, I think this album is really great all the way through. I would put this up as a contender for Album of the Year for myself personally. I think everything works really well, and even the songs that I think are weaker, I think still have some moments that are really effective. It's fun, it's chaotic, I think the riff writing is really strong, and I think the vocals take a noticeable step up from their previous albums. I think each song has at least one thing that I can latch onto on repeat listens that just help each song grow a little bit more each time I hear it. And I think overall this is just a really, really strong album from this band. For my overall negatives, I talked about this. This is just the one thing that I think holds it back from being an almost perfect album. Is that sometimes things just get a little too busy. I think the vocals, again, are very strong, and I think the instrumental writing is very strong. There are moments where they're both doing too much at the same time for my personal taste, and I would have liked to hear some more stripped back moments to let each of those elements shine through. Again, I think that is a subjective thing. That's just my taste and what I would like to hear. But it does hold this one back from being a perfect album for me. Overall, the positives definitely outweigh the negatives for this album. I think this is a great album all the way through. I would highly recommend it if you've not checked out this band. I think it shows a lot of promising growth from them, and I'm really excited to hear what they continue to do. For my top songs on this album, I'll give you my top 3 in order. My favorite song on this album is Burn a Miracle, and again, I think that's just one of my favorite songs that they've ever done in general. Number 2 for me would be Cemetery Sun. I think that one is really strong, and it's really close between that one and Burn a Miracle for me. And then number 3, my third favorite song on this album would be Satellite in Love. If I had to give a least favorite song, I think I would go with Diamond to Diamond. For whatever reason, that one just doesn't really click with me. For recommendations, it's kind of hard for me to recommend bands that are similar to Greyhaven because I feel like they have a level of uniqueness to them that I don't hear a lot of other bands do. I think they definitely pull from a few bands, and there's some styles that they emulate, but for me, I just haven't found a band that sounds exactly like them. So if you have suggestions of things I should check out that are in this style, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear more songs in this style. There are a few bands that come to mind though. The band Sixth, for me, there's something that reminds me of Greyhaven in the vocals especially. I think they have usually a level of chaos that Greyhaven kind of emulates. And I think the delivery of the screams is fairly similar to what the singer in Greyhaven does. They definitely lean more into the proggy side of things than Greyhaven does. Greyhaven's songs and the structure is a little more straightforward, but I definitely think some similarities are there if you're interested in checking that band out. I would also recommend the Dillinger Escape Plan. I think there are some similarities, again, in the level of chaos that Dillinger Escape Plan reaches. And I think, again, the scream and vocal delivery matches what Greyhaven does. There's another band called Better Lovers that shares the same vocalist as Dillinger Escape Plan. So if you like the vocal delivery of either of those bands and the vocal delivery of Greyhaven, I would recommend Better Lovers as well. Again, let me know if you know of other bands that match Greyhaven's sound, because I would love to hear them and check them out. That's going to do things for this album review. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to see me review other albums in this style, please drop some suggestions below. I've been trying to catch up with all the music that's been coming out. There was a lot that released on Halloween that I'm excited to dig into, and hopefully get some reviews out for that stuff soon. Also be sure to drop your thoughts on this album. Give me your top 3 songs and your least favorite song from this album, and just some of your overall thoughts. I'd love to hear what you guys think of this one. That'll do it for this album review, and I'll see you guys in the next video.